Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? How have you been? Are you having a good day? I hope you guys are, because we're moving into some Terran versus Terran. My name is Fear Dragon. I am joined here by the Terran Lord himself. It is Mr. Nathanius. What's up?
What is up, my dudes?
What'd you do during the 6-minute break?
I went into Twitch chat, and I regretted it immediately. I don't know what to tell you guys. There was some weird conversations going on.
There are some very strange conversations in Twitch chat today.
Particularly during that match. I don't know why. I'd just like to point out that Swarm Host cost a lot of supply and a good amount of resources as well. And that during the entire period of time when the Locusts are out or dead, the Swarm Hosts are like totally vulnerable and still cost supply. How crazy is that?
Well, maybe it's just misleading because you do have the name low cost, so it just implies that there's already going to be a very low cost.
I don't know. People keep saying free unit, and I'm like, how do I get free? Do you know what the word free means? But anyway,
low cost of free.
I know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was just very excited because we've managed to have a set rotation for our casters here, and I get to do the TvT.
There isn't someone at Blizzard that just says, "Wait a second, Fear Dragon isn't casting very well today. Let's send in Zombie Grub and Nathanius."
In Control did threaten to punch me into retirement if I tried to cast the TvT that we had a while back.
Well, don't worry, I won't do that because our next match is a TvT.
That's right.
As you guys take a look, we will have, of course, uThermal facing off versus souL. That's kind of amazing because this is the winner's match. That means that we guarantee a Terran player is going to advance on to the playoffs.
That's right. There is at least one Terran player that is going to move on. We can promise you that. Yeah. So that'll be great.
That's the only thing we can promise right now.
Yeah. So we're just waiting for the game to start. They are waiting to be told that they can start it. I told them they can start it. Hopefully they start it soon. All right. It is starting.
Okay.
I got you guys.
Wow.
I got you.
Look at that power. Look at that control right there.
Let's be real. The only reason that I'm right here is so that people don't think that I'm the mastermind behind all of it, behind the scenes as well, Fear Dragon.
Was it really Jeff that threatened to punch you into retirement, or did you actually threaten him?
My God, he's got it!
Oh my God, we actually found the oldest boy of them all.
It's true.
Everyone thought that Nathanius was young, but really, he's actually the oldest one. Older than
we did it. We survived the small talk period, and we made it into the game.
That was some
StarCraft.
big talk. Let's not undersell it, Nate.
You're right. You're right. Oh, this is good. I'm having a good day. I knew today's broadcast was going to be great, and I think it's delivered. Mostly because all of you cuties hanging out with us in the chat. In the bottom right, spawning as the red Terran player, hailing from the Netherlands. He is uThermal.
And up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, we have the blue Terran player who has been jazzing through this group today. He is souL.
Yep, had a very weird match against Lambo in the first series of the day. Just a quick recap, Lambo literally built only Zerglings and Banelings until he tried to get Ultras. Naturally, he died doing that. And then souL killed him with a Turax into just a straight-up bio play and did not relent. Got a lot of damage done. So souL did not have a crazy long series getting here. uThermal had a nice little back and forth with DNS there. Definitely a good warm-up for both of them. And TvT, well, what's there to say? It's very ugly. It's very brutal. It's a very punishing matchup.
Very unforgiving.
Very unforgiving, right. So,
actually, it's kind of weird, and correct me if you think you disagree with me on this, because the impression I have of TvT is that it's both really unforgiving and extremely forgiving at the same time. It's unforgiving in the sense that if you're out of position or you make like a big mistake, the game can end right there. But I feel like if it's a mistake that doesn't just end the game, there are a lot of opportunities to come back in the game because there's just so many ways that things just like
Terran versus Terran.
Spiral.
Terran versus Terran hinges very heavily on like this non-stop aggression, because if you can get an economy advantage, it actually doesn't feel as big in TvT.
Yeah.
For Terran versus Terran, like, it's very punishing in terms of like your valuable units, and if someone gets like a siege position on you,
That's nice.
you almost always just die. Like, it's really hard to break out of some of the strangleholds you can get. The early Reaper fight is always tough. It's one of my favorite talking points in StarCraft is because of the way that the Reaper attacks and the random attack delay in StarCraft.
Oh, yeah.
If two Reapers just run into each other and start fighting and neither of them like gets a first
You don't
shot
know who's
because
gonna
of
win.
high ground, it's completely RNG. Reaper versus Reaper fight because, so for anybody that, if you don't know, when a unit attacks in StarCraft, there's a random plus or minus added or subtracted from its attack speed. This is actually done, well, I think one of the big reasons why they did it is it makes the sound effects a lot better when lots of units are shooting.
Because imagine if you have 50 Marines that all start firing and they target fire down destructible rocks and they all fire at the exact same time and there's like a moment of silence and then they all attack again at the exact same time in the moment of silence. It sounds weird.
Yeah, so it kind of creates like a cascading sound effect. But for you, because they're hit scan units, they don't have a projectile that actually flies through the air. So that's one of the things, and that actually has a big impact on TvT because it makes it very scary to move out with your Reaper at the start of the game.
Nice snipe on that Reaper. That is going to give you thermal. Just a slight little unit advantage for the early game, but with the Cyclone out on souL side of the map instead of the Hellions, that should be able to push things back for the immediate time being. There's also a bunker going up, so souL's not cutting any corners here. He wants to make sure he doesn't die or take too much damage for the Hellions.
Yeah, the way that these builds kind of line up is intriguing. The Cyclone should be able to theoretically easily smack down the Liberator. But there's not really a whole lot there to deal with this Banshee because despite the fact that Hellions are coming out, you don't want to drop auto turrets to kill the Banshee. First of all, it's very hard to do that. Second of all, the Raven's key role in Terran versus Terran is interference matrix when you are dealing with tech units or like siege tanks, for example, so you can break the lines. The Dorito cannon is nice, and actually these Hellions fly right under the Banshee, so he should have some idea of it. But kind of pushing past this bunker, I think, is really risky, but he's going to try.
Okay, kills off a couple of the Marines. Some of these Hellions
that Cyclone
are
here is actually really big because now the Liberator needs to deal with it. Really good play there. He's actually going to get some of the SCVs. uThermal, I love this daring play. Hellions, very cheap, expendable units, very fast. And this also forces those Marines out of the bunkers so you can get even a little bit more damage done.
Yeah, he's killed a good number of Marines here now. 6 Marines. 6 Marines going down, 6 workers. Liberator also still alive, and that Banshee.
This is the awkward part. He has a Raven out, but there's not much to deal with it. So do you throw an auto?
Do you interference matrix? No.
I think interference matrix maybe buys you more time because like that auto turret was nice, but nothing can kill the Banshee still. Banshee's outrange Marines, so as long as souL micro's half decent, he's fine. He should be able to just keep killing stuff until the next Raven comes out. Maybe he drops another auto turret.
Really nice micro so far, keeping that Banshee alive. Not taking too many hits from these slow Marines, and is going to be able to get out of there alive. The Raven doesn't have enough energy to continue to chase and harass him. And this Raven is a miss rally, right?
Yeah, that's got to be a mistake.
Well,
it's really weird. It's really weird. You don't want to use auto turrets in TvT. It's a weird thing. Sometimes you can still use it for like direct frontal assaults, and that's nice. But really, the most important usage of that, and we've seen it start to pop up against Protoss players nowadays as well, interference matrix is perhaps the strongest ability in TvT other than, I guess I'd say, Stim. Siege tanks, I don't really count siege tanks as an ability, but the ability for Ravens to break those down, and even when you're playing bio versus bio, the Raven's still crazy useful because the Dorito cannon, getting rid of all of the armor, makes fights very one-sided.
You know what's funny? Whenever you say, I know we say Dorito cannon so often in the broadcast, but every so often I just think of that random person that joins in on the stream. They're like, Dorito cannon? What? What on earth is a Dorito cannon?
The best part is it's just very visually self-explanatory.
It is.
But
you'll wonder about it.
Anti-armor
You'll
missile.
wonder about it until you see it, and you're like, oh, that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anti-armor.
I always make sure to mention that Dorito cannon lowers the armor.
You do.
Especially,
you do explain what it is.
Yeah. Especially because most players open up with like +1 attack and stuff. So since both players are going to go bio, which I wasn't entirely convinced of for a little while from uThermal's side, because like he had a very mechy type opener, but that does make it a huge factor. I mean, 2 Ravens is the standard. It's like that's what you want. You get up to 8 interference matrices.
Yeah, that's the correct word.
For dealing with siege tanks. It really allows you to push in on top. And that's why I talk about the auto turrets, because there's like a whole, I think one of my favorite TvT memes, like amongst good players, when you talk about what like builds and stuff, is if some poor fool sends his Raven to your base early and like drops an auto turret to kill a couple SCVs, you just go across the map and kill him, because then he won't have interference matrix, and then you use your interference matrix on his tanks. He can't use his on any of yours because he wasted his energy killing 2 SCVs, and then they usually just die. So the Raven's extremely important. Like even in this situation, there's enough interference matrix for both players to lock down all of the other players' siege tanks.
Yeah,
right?
I'll say one big thing that's going in favor of uThermal is that he does have the Viking count lead. So as long as he target fires well, as long as his Vikings don't get interference matrix or something, and instead the siege tanks do, uThermal should be able to win out in the air war, and that does give you a really nice range advantage. Oh, this really high ground position is so beautiful.
Yeah, that was really well done.
Now he has a two tank lead.
Yeah, that's really nice. So this is the slow staggering back from souL is still not terrible because he's buying himself a lot of time, but he needs to think about how he's going to try and get this push off of his back, because that Viking count advantage that you were discussing is not just going to go away.
Yep. And you can see that uThermal is inching his way forward. They're just barely out of range of each other. Now we end up seeing one of the siege tanks.
So that's where you see the interference matrix done, so that it outdoes the attack speed.
Now he's up 3 tanks. And actually still up in Vikings as well.
There you go. Interference matrix on all the other tanks. He's going to run these Marines in now. And all these tanks should be able to die. He's going to throw on auto turrets to soak those shots. Really well done to actually keep his siege tanks alive.
Yeah.
Now gets the Viking count lead.
And also takes out a decent number of the forward position tanks there for uThermal with the auto turrets, and now the Vikings landing.
Don't know how I feel about this. I think he's just going to drop auto turrets himself.
Yeah, so some of those Vikings for souL do end up going down. uThermal is still down in Vikings though. It's 6-4.
Still,
his tank count is evened up.
So both Ravens for souL are dead. uThermal still has one of his Ravens, but with no energy. So with the way that this attack is coming, you want to just defend this 4th. He was able to finish the 4th, but now the Viking advantage is for the other players. We've got 6 out on the map with not more on the way for souL, but that should allow him to kind of try and come and bully this. uThermal setting himself up on the left side, trying to catch the army, maybe moving through the middle.
Yeah, I also want to really quickly note the armor upgrade for the Bioforces is a lot faster there for uThermal. We saw faster 1-1 for uThermal, and it was a solid like 20-30 seconds faster than souL's, and using that jump that he got in the upgrades, he's carrying it on with at least his armor upgrade. He didn't quite get the weapons upgrade as fast, but that's going to be another one of those small little advantages that can tip the tables in your favor when it comes to bio versus bio.
Yeah, and bio versus bio, the upgrades are extremely important. And because only one of the players has the Raven, that's something else I'm going to keep my eye on throughout this game, because it's got 61 energy. Dorito Cannon is 75, and that reduces the armor of all units affected by 3. So that would put these Marines right now into -2 armor.
Yeah.
Which gives 2 extra damage, basically, to uThermal's Marines every time they shoot, which is catastrophic. But he may go for the lockdown as well.
Okay, we end up seeing a couple of the Vikings here exchanging some blows. A lot of the Vikings there for souL are pretty softened up, and I love that he's spending the time to repair up those Vikings. Can also repair up one of those siege tanks that's a little bit lower in hit points. The sensor tower going to make it a lot harder for uThermal to move forward without being detected. And we're going to end up seeing these.
I like these sensor towers. I like the sensor towers a lot.
Both these players getting them up.
You know, sensor towers, it's like there's some Terran stuff that just didn't get used in the longest time. People would always talk about the Viking, right, versus Zerg to get overlords, and then it became the sensor tower versus Protoss, but gets 2 tanks there. And now, I mean, oh man, wow, we're almost at that phase. Yeah, there you go. Stim in as the tanks move forward, and once those Marines clump, Dorito Cannon right in the heart.
And +2 armor upgrade also helping out a little bit in this bio versus bio force. There we go. +2 armor finishes up there for souL, but all of his Marines just died, so there's not a whole lot to get used for.
He's going to be able to, and this is actually a really good spot because this chokes off.
There's a drop on the other side of the map, a double medevac drop going to the third, but uThermal is so on top of it. Every single one of these Marines for souL pretty much end up dying right as they get their way out of the medevac. Only a few survive, and I think the tank should be able to clean that up.
This position is beautiful. He's choked off both bases. He's got the fourth and the third in his sights. And as soon as the next wave of Marines basically gets over there, I will say there's an opportunity to drop on top of this because it's just the 4 tanks. The Marines are not really in position.
Yeah, just come in from behind. Loses a few Marines at the same time, but these tanks going down.
You know what? I thought that was going to be a lot worse. souL still has 67 workers, so that's not even a problem. Both of these players actually overbuilt SCVs. uThermal's about to go past 80 SCVs. Do you realize what you're doing?
Pretty unusual for a Terran player that's hitting 5 bases and has
it doesn't
a bunch
hurt.
of orbals.
It doesn't hurt until you're maxed. Is something that's worth keeping in mind.
And they have been trading.
It's not a bad thing because they are trading, so you just have more income to keep trading with. But as you approach 200, 83 SCVs is maximum overkill.
Yeah. How do you feel about the armor upgrades for mech? So those siege tanks for souL.
It doesn't really matter.
Okay.
If the Marines are on top of your tanks, like the 1 or 2
they're probably
hits,
dying anyways.
Like, yeah, you could have a tank survive with barely any health, but that's usually not what's going to be the determining factor. It's nice, I guess, for everything, because it affects everything, but
that's unfortunate.
If he's thinking about going into, like, BCs or something ridiculous later.
Finds this angle again. This is a really nice spot here for uThermal to abuse a second time. This time he has Marines here to support. He's going to be able to find one of the armories that they're researching the armor upgrade.
+2 armor is not even going to finish.
Yeah.
But I like the plus attack a little bit more because when the siege tank gets up to +3, I think they one-shot stim Marines, or maybe they already do at this point. But it's about, because it's so much Marines and SCVs like that you're going to end up fighting against with the tanks, that I think it just has a little bit more value there, since the medevacs are also going to heal a little bit, so those small amounts of damage become more significant for the tanks killing bio. 11
workers killed, not bad. So uThermal, on top of the 83 workers, is still getting more damage.
Sees that these tanks aren't siege. He's going to just try to spread out and run forward into it. Need to stagger a few Marines forward to bait out the splash, but it looks like he's going to be able to crack it regardless.
Yeah.
GG.
uThermal finds an opportunity and seizes it there, taking the first game.
Well done. Very, very aggressive game. That's TvT in a nutshell. Is you get the Ravens, you get like a random assortment, you know? It's like you go to you don't try to just get like a chocolate bar. You get like the assortment. You're like, this is what I want to get.
Chocolate bar.
You know, there's like I'm getting like here's this one setup. Here's this other setup. The only thing they all have in common, of course, is the chocolate, the Ravens, and it's just you do as much as you can with the Ravens to make the rest of your units work. And you get weird fights like landed Vikings and tanks versus auto turrets. And that's just one of the things that happens because Stim will never be done that early in the game. But thinking about the way that it played out, really the big thing is he just got some really good army engagements. The forward movement, the snipes on the siege tanks were crucial. He made much better use of his Raven. Even when in the second follow-up fight where he got between the third and the fourth base, the Raven did not actually do anything, but it did kind of force him back. The Raven died with 90 energy. It didn't use Dorito Cannon. It didn't use Interference Matrix, but the Vikings were the micro and the attention was being put on them to step forward back against that. And that's when uThermal was able to get that spread out and push up onto that base. So really well done on his part. The map awareness and the vision control for tank versus tank is where he was able to carve out the lead here, because otherwise I don't think souL's setup was bad. He lost a lot of tanks in just that, that open field. I've got a Viking over here, or I've got a scan, and he just was not on top of it defending.
Yeah, I think uThermal did a really, really nice job. I mean, you kind of covered most of the points I was worth talking about, but I will say, like,
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. That's what you're here for, man. I was going to say, like, one of the other kind of interesting things about that was that there was never really a lot of pressure put on uThermal directly, right?
No.
There was the one double medevac drop that managed to make its way in while uThermal was putting the pressure on, but...
he just, like, smited that.
Yeah,
it was gone.
But even the big attack that souL was trying to go for through the middle of the map, uThermal met in the middle. He met it at a point where none of his stuff was really getting too threatened, and he had space to fall back to, whereas souL was always just on the verge of his command centers or something being under assault from the siege checks and everything. So uThermal, it just felt like he was able to get more aggressive and keep most of the fighting in the middle or on his opponent's side of the map, which I really, really liked.
Yeah. And that, it comes down to stuff like that. The siege tanks as well is, you can't really overstate the value or the importance of the siege tanks in TvT in that early mid-game phase, because you don't have stim very quickly. It's something that always comes into play. Also, just going back to uThermal's opening in the last map, lots of Hellions.
Yeah.
And that's not a style you see a crazy amount of, because in my opinion, Hellion openings of any kind, even with Ravens, are extremely flimsy if your opponent just does ye old 2 Raven, like, you know, the build. The 2 Raven with the fast second gas, or fast first gas on the natural. You go 2 Raven, 2 tank, like 10 Marines, and then you rally Vikings behind it with the reactor. Like, that build obliterates pretty much anything that isn't a mirror of it.
Yeah, you know, I wonder if that is something that uThermal kind of knows about souL, or how he likes to open up. Because if you think about it, all right, Europe, Terran, I have to practice TvTs. Well, there's basically what? souL, Hero Marine,
uThermal,
Marine Lord, and uThermal, right? It's like
Lord.
there's maybe 4, maybe 5. Clem, I guess, is there as well.
Clem's up there, but he's.
But it's like it's a pretty short list of players, so keeping an eye track and an eye on the top players and how they like to play in TvT, probably not the hardest thing to remember.
Wow. You got to imagine they're all friends as well, because they're all in that one Terran Discord just whining about Protoss.
That is true. You know, I got a glimpse of it at the WCS Winter Finals. A laser was showing me some of the Skype chats and stuff he was in, as well as got to see some of the others.
Pro-gamer
They're pretty fun.
They're
pretty fun. Apparently they have conversations using only the suggested, like, iPhone or Android.
Predictive text.
The predictive text. So they just have conversations just using predictive text. That was fun.
There you go, guys. Learn from StarCraft pros. Do not write out your own words. Let the
Basically,
AI
it's a
do it for
hotkey,
you.
right?
Yeah.
Hotkeys are good.
There you go.
We do have the Hellion opening for both sides this time. So I think souL, he didn't get any Hellions last time, right? He just went straight into
this
cycle.
is like the more standard way to do it, though, but the second barracks from uThermal is a little bit odd. And this is, because he builds them at home, this is more of like, this is another one of those, you know, tasteless. He did invent a few useful things in this game. This is like a bop build. This is one of those things where you're like, okay, so if we both open up with a normal build, it's going to be double gas with the barracks into the factory, Reaper, Hellion, maybe a Cyclone. But just getting that 1 or 2 extra Reapers this early on, you can like jump up on top of your opponent and just kill them.
He's still making them. He's not just stopping at 4. He's going up to 6.
Well, he'll dumpster this Cyclone push. Like, when he comes up with this, the potential for him to win this game instantly is like really, really high. Like, this is a situation where the control is going to determine whether or not souL wins or loses this game.
souL
because the Cyclones die very quickly, and they take a long time to build as well.
Oh yeah, souL keeping all of his units on the high ground up here. So that is going to give him a little bit of time to realize the army composition that's going to be here and react positionally with all of his units. Maybe even pull some SCVs. Cyclone does pop out, immediately kills one of the Reapers. 2 SCVs going down. uThermal backing off, regen some hit points, but he's still making more Reapers.
Good patience out of souL, holding the low ground there. The siege tank is going to put an end to this, though. I don't like seeing more Reapers in this situation, but this is his last opportunity to try and do something with this. These units are mostly useless unless he's playing mech after this fight, so they're pushing this ramp. I mean, really good control from souL, because he's not taking the bait and running down. There are some workers that can be picked off here, but this is it. He has to come up the ramp and try to do something. Siege tank is out, though, so kill the SCVs, maybe let the Hellions try to just focus down a few of these units and run the Reapers out, but no, he's going to trade everything.
Yeah, I guess he gets almost everything except for the Cyclone and the Siege Tank, which are the kind of power units there.
Well, that's the thing, right? In this setup, souL doesn't care about the units that he's lost, right? It's just the Reapers. What did you want those for? To stop an attack? You stopped the attack. Congratulations. And what was the Hellion for? Same thing. So the tank is useful for the rest of the game. The Cyclone, pretty much until we have really big armies, and then Cyclones just die. So I would say, all things considered, I like the position of souL a lot, just because the natural is so much later for uThermal, and now souL starts up his 3rd command center, because he's thinking to himself, well, yeah, you can't possibly have a quick follow-up to this. I wouldn't even mind seeing with this Raven coming out, since he's already got the Viking and the Cyclone. souL could smack this Banshee away, and then just maybe go for a push. Yeah.
Looks like he's going to go for a third CC behind this instead. We'll see if he still decides to maybe poke forward with something after he smacks down the Banshee, but we do see a couple of units also making their way along the north side. It's just the Reapers, the 2 Reapers from earlier on, so maybe going to try and just distract souL a little bit with the Banshee, but oh boy, there's the second block on, and the Raven and the Viking. Banshee goes down, only getting 2 worker kills, and the Reapers do get open access to the main base, but at most, I expect 2 workers. 3 would be kind of surprising. 4 is unbelievable.
Yeah, of course that worker count is still from the Banshee.
That just damage. Oh, the siege. How it was like? Did that Cyclone just have explosive rounds?
If only.
That'd be a pretty cool upgrade. Suddenly the Cyclone lock-on does splash damage.
Just like get those like little, the little Left 4 Dead cartridges. Like load up these Marines and load it up with flame rounds.
Incendiary rounds.
Oh boy!
Suddenly these units actually catch on fire with the damage over time. Thankfully not.
Dear Dragon, you're getting me excited about stuff that's never going to be real. Okay.
Wouldn't it be cool? There's just a Cyclone skin that adds a little bit of fire to the attack.
Next, you're telling me you'll be able to load units inside of battle cruisers, all right? Don't get my hopes up.
You load up the SCVs that will repair the battle cruiser for your battle cruiser.
No, I'd want to put Marines inside of it. Unupgraded Marines, because that's naturally how it would be. Getting this Banshee would be really nice.
Yep. Good control there with the Viking.
There's a huge opportunity here for souL to push. He has so many siege tanks. He has significantly more than his opponent. It's 4-2, and it's going to be 5-3 soon.
Yeah.
He's got more than enough to try and make something happen. I don't want to say surprisingly, uThermal is going to try and take initiative regardless. He's got 2 medevacs that are out. He's just going to boost over. I think his goal is going to be to try and like catch him off guard with a jump into the main, maybe.
I mean, just because he has combat shields, there's maybe a chance he can make this work. But oh man, that's
the other advantage. It's the other advantage of his build because he opened with the 2 racks, so he was able to get those running faster. He went double tech lab, even though it's bio, because he wanted to get those upgrades simultaneously. And souL doesn't have any of those, but he has tanks, so it doesn't matter. He's got way more than enough tanks.
Interesting position for the siege up. It's almost like he's trying to deny a 3rd base or something, but those tanks are so far back. There's no way they're going to be able to support him right now.
uThermal's logic is probably just based off of, like, so there's a scan. He's just building his 3rd on location, whereas souL has had his 3rd for a while, so he's thinking, I can't break him, but I can try to contain him. I still think this is really risky, by the way, because the Ravens can use the interference matrix on the tanks.
And that Raven usage is something that uThermal just doesn't have at all. So we end up seeing the siege tank starting to move a little bit further forward here for souL. Here come the Ravens, and here come, the Vikings sniping off one of the medevacs, and immediately uThermal just backs out of there.
Yep. Well, the one thing that uThermal had going for himself is, his control and his confidence. Feels like he can make these types of plays.
Oh, he's sieging over here, maybe.
Okay, well, you get some Raven energy burned. But
there's still plenty.
Yeah.
Okay, well, seems like uThermal's going to back off. I mean, he did delay the 3rd for an extra minute or so, and he got up his own 3rd. It's now at location, finished. It's turning into an orbital. It's mining. So uThermal bought the time he was looking for, and he has a faster +1 weapons. Would love to see that armor.
uThermal has the more mobile army, and souL has the more technical army.
Yeah.
He's just only had 1 tank at the moment. But he has the 2 Ravens. There are no Ravens for uThermal. He has 7 Vikings. There's no Vikings. There's just 6 medevacs for uThermal. And a lot of Marines. But there's only 13 Marines for souL versus 37 of uThermal. So actually, souL cannot really leave his base.
Yeah, I just realized during that push, because I was looking right before he popped out a new round of production, so only had 6 Marines when that whole push in from uThermal was happening. So yeah. I guess it does make a little bit more sense when you put the context of, well, it'd be siege tanks.
Oh my God.
Not Marines. Ooh. He just dodged out the scan, right?
Yeah, he didn't get spotted.
Oh, the sensor tower's there, so he did get spotted.
It just finished up, though. He had an opportunity. That would have been crazy.
Could have been dangerous. Okay, we end up seeing a big army from souL at the same time that the Liberator is harassing. It stemmed forward because it saw all the medevacs. So he stemmed forward with a bunch of his, actually, sorry, not stem forward. It was just Vikings moving forward, looking for those medevacs, but doesn't find it. Finds one of the drops here for souL and picks it off. All the Marines die inside. So that's a good pick off there for uThermal. He has fallen pretty far behind in upgrades, though. His +1 armor is only about halfway done, whereas 2-2 is started up for souL.
souL's been in a really good position all game.
Yeah.
Having the economic advantage early on, dealing extremely well with the Reaper Hellion meme build from uThermal. All uThermal has going for him is that he just has a lot more Marines. So really, all souL needs to do is not take a giant spread out fight in the middle of the map. He just needs to play ball with the siege tanks and defend. If uThermal finds an opportunity to jump on him, he'll be in a good spot. But let's not forget, Dorito Cannon. Yeah, he's going to hit him with the anti-armor missile. And his Marines are all very vulnerable now. They're going to be knocked down to, since they don't have that +1 armor upgrade you were talking about, the Marines have -3 armor. Which gives souL's Marines the effect of having like +4 attack. They would do 10 damage a hit.
Oh, God, that's disgusting to think about. But okay, +1 armor is about to finish up here for uThermal, so he's going to tie up upgrades for a solid 40, 50 seconds until 2-2 finishes up there for souL. So if he wants to make something happen with his army, I guess now would be that time. He has a lot of medevacs here, so he can absorb some of the Viking damage, and he can stim to his heart's content a bit, but I just don't know that he's going to be able to find the opportunity because going back again, the Ravens are going to be able to interference matrix so
the Marine counts, and the Marine counts kind of evened up. The Dorito Cannon's a really big part, and then it's just interference matrix and the rest. But honestly, I think we're at the point where with this next wave coming out and 2-2 finishing, souL should actually prepare himself to try and take that big head-to-head fight and just try and out-micro him, which is, I think, uThermal's strength. But with the technical aspect of this army, souL can afford to make 1 or 2 mistakes and then using the Dorito Cannon be able to actually just straight up win the Marine versus Marine fight with the upgrade advantage.
The Liberator's out. The Liberator's out, and that is the big thing that souL needs to pair with those Vikings, because now he can force those siege tanks back, and there's nothing that uThermal can really do about it unless he wants to sack a bunch of Marines running into his opponent's siege tanks. And here we go. A drop on the top left-hand side catches the 4th base. There's also a 5th base going up, by the way, for uThermal. So he was just trying to out-expand his opponent.
Yeah, his only way back into this game is to try and just take over the map while he holds souL inside his base.
Base trade.
Base trade, boys!
Finds a 3rd base, and he is starting to pull back with some of the army, reconsidering should I go right now?
There's no pulling back.
He does find one of the command centers as well, so that's going to be not just the 3rd lifted off, that's also the 4th base being taken out. SCV's dying very rapidly here, so uThermal does have to jump on his opponent a lot faster.
Yeah, this is really awkward. There's the Dorito Cannon onto those defending Marines. Are going to get obliterated easy peasy. Now, the biggest way, the best way to kill any Terran, the head of the snake you're trying to cut off is the production. Get on top of the racks, and really one of the best things to do in these types of situations, you're not going to be able to get many units out. Lift your production and fly. Fly somewhere else. If you're going to try and build stuff, do it in a random corner of the map, because this game is getting scrappy-dappy-do. And guess what? That's where all those Vikings that we've been talking about all game for souL suddenly become so freaking useful, because there is nothing to kill the flying buildings for uThermal if this were to get to a draw scenario.
Yep, we do have the one building that uThermal didn't lift off was the starport, the only building that can make those Vikings. He is also still not supply blocked just yet, thanks to all the SCVs that died.
At best, this is at best for uThermal, it's a draw now. At worst, he's going to lose, right? Starport is actually okay. He didn't kill it. It's there. He didn't lift it, but it is still there.
Does he have it? Wait, how much? A Viking?
He could squeeze out a Viking to try and hide somewhere. I mean, he wouldn't win a Viking fight, but
he's building 2 more command centers, so it's not over yet. If he can somehow win take a good trade, which it's going to be hard, but
they make me sweat.
25 Marines to 14
Every
right now.
single SCV was killed, FYI. There's 3 orbitals for souL, but he literally has no SCVs. He cannot build anything else.
Yeah, he is.
He does have enough available supply. Yeah, I'll say he has 3 orbitals, but he doesn't have any SCVs, so he doesn't have any workers on the map to build stuff. He can build SCVs though, because he has supply available.
Yep, both these players also have a bit of minerals in the bank, so they can make some more Marines.
Look at the main base of souL. Base trade tactics. There are things you should always look for. Oh my god, those engineering bays. What would help so much if you were in a crazy, wacky situation? Even upgrades would be nice, except the E-base been let there. And frankly speaking, one of my favorite things to do when I get into base trade, always get the depots, man. And you can't build anything. He doesn't, like, neither players really have any workers. How are you going to replace this stuff? Leave some things there to kill that stuff.
Okay, uThermal,
To be fair, I'm a sadist and I base trade all the time, so that's just kind of my jam. But
I'm with you there. I'm with you there.
these supply depots, like if he were to have killed all the depots of souL, he can't build an SCV with his
Even
orbital,
just leave
right?
like one Marine or two Marines back there, because then if you see additional production coming out, you're like, okay, I should go and handle those barracks. They re-landed.
Yep, especially when you see like supply drop to depots.
Okay, Marines over here for uThermal in the center of the map, stimming forward. They do back off in time, but forces a siege up here from souL. Remember, if uThermal is able to get some good trades, he can potentially win out versus his army. Oh my god, that Raven gets so low on health. It's down to 25 hit points. A Marine did a little bit of extra damage there, and that is, by the way, the last Raven. The second Raven did die.
So he's using the tanks to jockey for positioning on the Raven.
Medevac sniped off. Nice job.
Wouldn't mind even seeing him try to throw the auto turret onto that one tank to clear it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be remade anytime soon.
I think the turret only needs one shot there. He tries to suicide that Marine in to try and grab a hit off on the Raven, I think.
Yeah.
He really wants to kill the Raven. That's the big thing.
Raven, or yeah, I mean, even if you just kill enough of the Vikings, you might be able to make it a little bit safer.
Oh my god, he can't see the tanks on the top side. Rip!
Oh.
Goodbye.
All right, so those tanks are pretty much goners. One tank will back up just a little bit. Oh, pulls it back with the medevac. Nice, I like it. Remember that there are more Marines being made inside of souL's main base, so he even has a bunker. Oh, I love the bunker.
The thing is, uThermal will not win a straight-up fight head-to-head. The Marine count is very even. souL has a ridiculous amount of tanks.
Uh-oh. That's not a safe way to go. That orbital is gonna end up falling. There's another orbital on the south side of the map, but uThermal, he's relying on the fact that he just has more workers right now, so he can replenish the army a little bit more, but it's still really, really tough for him.
Yeah, there were 3 orbitals for souL as part of the problem, so even though he didn't have as many workers, he does have more mules, which I think actually give him more money right now. Yeah.
This is
But 3-3. That's what I was getting to. 3-3 for souL versus 2-2 of uThermal. When it comes to Marines, no amount of micro is going to save you from that 2 upgrade disadvantage.
Yep.
Marines just attack so fast and have such little health that upgrade advantage is everything.
And now the Liberator is going to be able to force these siege tanks back. One siege tank gets interference matrix, and here we go.
He's like, yeah,
that's another one.
Tanks.
There are now only 4 tanks left over here for uThermal, and still plenty of Marines for both sides. It's actually 25 versus 25, so there's no unit advantage really in any regard inside of medevacs right now for uThermal.
Drops no turret, not able to get a tank off of it. Raven dies.
Yeah.
He's just moving on up. And that's the last base. This is it. This is like where he's holed up. This is where they will make their stand.
Yeah.
Bye, barracks.
I think he's going to have to take a seat pretty soon, though, as souL is just inching forward. He's actually playing this out really smart. He is going to lose a Liberator. Doesn't actually end up taking any damage from the tank fire for that either, but...
Oh, wow, he loaded up a bunch of Marines into one of the medevacs there.
Yeah, he was hoping to just try and go for like some sort of wonky base trade situation again.
There's not much he can do, though. Yeah. He can't even try to drop on top of the tanks. GG! souL is going to tie this series up 1 apiece. Very well done.
Yeah.
Base trade scenarios are extremely frustrating and very difficult to play out of, but souL had a perfect opening. Everything went his way. He traded out his Reapers and his Hellions for Reapers and Hellions. He was able to get a much faster expand, much faster tank. He got the Ravens out. Everything just went perfect for souL. And uThermal was more aggressive and out on the map. We saw that work to uThermal's advantage in game 1, where it was a little bit better because he got the early Hellion kills. But souL, I think he kind of played to his strength. He said, I don't want to fight uThermal out on the map. I'm going to have so much more money and tech units and upgrades going that I'm not going to have anywhere near as many Marines. At some point, it was like 7 or 10 to like 30. Yeah. But it doesn't matter because he has so 3 or 4 more siege tanks spread out, and then those Marines can't do anything anyway because he also has Vikings. So really, really well done. Great awareness. Another thing I love that souL's been doing in this series is we've seen a lot of sensor tower usage.
I love that.
For TvT, so many of these games, if you play ladder, boil down to base trades, really big doom drops and all that. So having those sensor towers, even just a couple extra moments, can be a difference maker. You know, there's sometimes you'll be in like a crazy game. That sensor tower, you see like 6 medevacs coming in, but you have like like one production wave of Marines that's about to finish, and just being able to stim those and send them to like where the medevacs you think are going to enter your base, you could kill 1 or 2 of them before any units unload, and even that can be like the tide turning deciding factor in a base trade. So really, really good, intense series. It's tied up 1 apiece, and I can't wait to see who wins.
Yeah, and I want to note that last game, because you're talking about souL was ahead for effectively almost the entirety of that game, and it was all off the back of him maintaining a lead from the weird opening that uThermal threw out, right? That 8 or so Reaper, Hellion push that didn't really do what he was looking
for. It was
for
like
there.
2-Rax, Reaper, Hellion into Cloak Banshee, which also got destroyed, by the way.
So I do think that's like the little asterisk that we put on that game of like, okay, souL got into a really good position, and he did a phenomenal job maintaining that lead. But what happens if uThermal doesn't go for one of those kind of weird openings that puts him really far behind? If this goes into an even game versus even game.
That's just TvT, though.
Yeah.
I mean, he did a weird opener with a Reactor Factory Hellion in the first game, and he actually got like 6 SCVs and some of the Marines, and that gave him a nice advantage. But that's just TvT. To me, that's just like, that is a casualty of this matchup. There is no TvT match that happens at any level of play where both players shake hands and they're like, all right, it's Bomber versus Pulse, and we're both going to 1-Rax expand into 3-Rax Marines, and then we're both going to open Combat Shield.
Well, I beg to differ, Nate.
Statistically better on Sakura's Plateau.
In my Silver League Terran player games, because I'm really bad at Terran and off race. I built a planetary fortress in my natural, and no one messes with me.
You and Ketrock. Goodness gracious.
Well, I'll just tell you, Reapers don't do a lot versus planetary fortress.
No, not these days at least.
Oh yeah, you know they used to.
They had the building attack.
What do you think giving the building attack back to Reapers in this day and age would look like? Would it change much?
Well, you'd have to add the tech lab requirement back on for sure. That's in my mind, that was always like,
because the bunker rushes.
In my mind, it was always like, that's one of those things that if you wanted to make it so the Reaper wasn't completely irrelevant past the first 3 minutes of a game, just put it like an armory unlocked upgrade. You know what I mean?
Oh, for the
grenade attack against buildings, so that like later in the game, if you wanted to have a Reaper hit squad, you could do that.
Yeah. So context-wise, for those who weren't around during Wings of Liberty,
oh yeah, this was like 8 years ago. We're dinosaurs.
Reapers used to do a lot of damage.
Reapers had
buildings.
a separate attack just against buildings. It did 30 damage a hit, and it single-handedly got the assimilator buffed. Which has been undone finally after 7 years. And every Zerg building actually got a huge hit point buff.
All the bunker build time stuff also partially tied to...
That was mostly Marine rushes, but...
I don't know if you remember, that was around the time of 5-Rax Reaper in Wings of Liberty, right?
That was also, it was also in the same time. It was, you either did 5-Rax Reaper or you did like just regular bunker Marine rush.
That was one of those, oh my god, that was one of those painful... I wasn't a Zerg player.
When it was a 15-second rush distance between main bases.
When Steps of War was the golden standard.
Close by ground on Metalopolis was even shorter.
Yeah. Oh yeah, before we started realizing, wait a second,
we could
just spawn. Not do every spawn.
Yeah, you could both spawn on like the top left of Metalopolis, and it was and then as a Terran, you could build 2 bunkers at the base of a Zerg's ramp and just lock them in on one base.
Yeah.
What's truly fascinating is knowing what we know now, and there were Terrans who died to 1 base Baneling busts back then.
Yep.
And that's astonishing, because bunkers only took like 25 seconds to make as well. Like you look back, you're like, dude, you built literally a bunker behind your wall, and the game is over.
I think my favorite was watching that, and then slowly Terran players realize, wait a second, if I build 6 rounds of all of my production around this ramp, then eventually they will run out of Banelings.
Also took a while for Hellions to get discovered. I will say some of those attacks were more effective because...
Can you believe? All right,
you used to have to research siege mode for tanks.
Oh,
so
yeah!
that was definitely what... That was like, that's why Zerg actually had more all-in options back then, because you could do like a Roach Ling Bane or Roach Bane, and they would be designed to hit around the time that like a Reactor Hellion expand would get you siege mode. But I guess we could also talk about this game of StarCraft in front of us.
Well, I mean, nothing's happened so far in the sense that neither one of these players have gone for any scouting information. They both have just gotten up the pretty typical composition. This is not
extremely similar.
Yeah.
Reaper, Hellion,
only
Cyclone,
difference.
Marines.
Yeah, the only difference here is that souL goes for the safety Cyclone, and
This looks like a fast tank drop.
Tank.
Looks like a fast tank drop for you, uThermal. This build is pretty popular. You actually just attack the natural with the 2 Hellions, 2 Reapers, and then you drop the 1 tank with 4 Marines inside the main. It's very fast. It's pretty flimsy. It can do a lot of damage. He doesn't necessarily need to attack right now. It can also be done defensively, but the medevac to me says that he's just going to load up and go across the map. And there he goes. So
Get up
he'll
that Raven.
follow it up by putting the starport onto the tech lab, build a Raven behind this, and kind of move into the standard TvT setup. But this build is pretty popular. You see this on ladder all the time. I think I played against this like 3 times yesterday. And on the other side, souL is going to do what he does best, which is stick to a more defensive setup. But that tank is going to make...
He's gonna see it.
Tank's going to give the Cyclone a hard time.
Ooh. And the Cyclone misses the lock on to get additional damage.
The medevac, by the way, can pick up and drop any of these units to mitigate that.
One of the Hellions does get picked off there. Doesn't quite get the medevac pick up in time. Siege in range of the command center as well. While it should never kill that command center, he is going to soften it up.
The Raven sharking on the north side. There we go.
Like that.
Matrix on the tank. And the rest of these units, I mean, you really want to make these Reapers and Marines do enough to hold it off so the tank can finish. There we go.
My
the tank
God.
stands.
Oh! What's the hit points on that? 2 hit points left over.
Miracle tank.
Oh, that's so annoying. And that command center still getting whittled away at. Hey, remember that Raven that uThermal made a while ago? Is he going to send it across the map? It doesn't. I don't see it making its way across the map.
I think it's too risky. It's never been done before. That tank will die. Just needs to be punched once.
Yeah, but a couple SCVs going to die in exchange. Already 3 going down. uThermal keeping these units alive in the medevac. Goes to the main base. This attack has already been so successful, uThermal.
Yeah, this is pretty sick. Even without the damage that he's done, just the distract.
Is he going to get a tank? No.
No, it's not happening.
No.
It's not possible.
There's the repair. Okay. Imagine if you threw down a grenade preemptively to knock the SCVs around so you couldn't repair it.
All right, well, we're still in the year 2019, okay? We haven't made it to 2040 yet.
Yeah.
All right, those builds won't be discovered until StarCraft 2 Remaster.
Ruff is working on them as we speak, somewhere out there. 7 workers killed, though, and also getting out of there with the medevac alive. That is a beautiful, beautiful opening for uThermal. Wow. And of course, behind this, he has his own 2 Ravens.
Both players still on a pretty good track, though. We have 2 Ravens. The Vikings are coming out. Third bases are actually extremely well lined up. Worker count isn't even all that different. So that's one of those things about TvT that's not as punishing. These types of attacks are really scary, but if they don't straight up kill you, you still have all the opportunity and time in the world to make the most of the game because the Raven Viking really gives you just a ridiculous amount of utility. And the majority of the damage that push did, to be perfectly honest, was to that command center, which did not die. So
that is true. It killed a good number of units and stuff, but we still see that uThermal is only just about tied in the siege tank count and everything, so it's not like he got a massive army supply lead by anything.
It's a nice advantage. uThermal definitely, he benefited from his early attack. I'm not going to try and say that this is like completely even, but souL has everything for the most part that uThermal has, minus a few SCVs, a unit here or there, but souL's actually ahead on tanks, just a little bit behind on Marines. The Ravens, I'm going to constantly talk about them. Both players have their Ravens, I believe, with about full energy on each one or close to, which is really all you need. 2 Marines are going to duke it out. souL's Marine wins. These types of fights are also, if they both start shooting at the same time, RNG, but that one's not ready to go.
Yeah, and being able to win out on these fights, it is actually a really, really nice boon just because you get a bit of extra map vision. We were talking about how TvT can be one of those matchups where sensor towers are super useful and everything. Well, until you do get up your sensor towers, having some Marines around the map to spot for a big push, that is the way that you also prevent yourself from just dying. That is one of the key things, I think, especially like a lot of the Diamond League, Terran players and stuff. If you're looking to try and get better at TvT, having spotters, big difference maker.
And if you don't want to do that as well, it's also just so nice. I'm going to say this because, he has spotters, but also the sensor towers are really important. The sensor tower costs 125 minerals and 100 gas. They are silly useful. It is so nice.
Okay.
Yes, your opponent can just dive on them and try to kill them, but if you have an army, it's not that simple.
Okay, hold that thought. We do have souL getting a very minor Viking count lead, 8-8, or no, or it was 8-7 for a second. Now 8-8 with some reinforcing Vikings coming across the map for uThermal. But souL does spot out the army before it gets into position, and we do behind this have uThermal try and take that 4th base.
I've seen this movie before, Fear Dragon. uThermal won the last time that they were doing a slow tank push.
Yeah.
He's very active with his units. souL definitely playing a more passive style. He doesn't really like to do too much until he's completely situated, like getting his 2-2, got a ton of Marines with combat shield stim, because he likes the very technical opening with the Ravens and the Vikings.
Yeah. I want to note, in game number 1, there were some other big difference makers. Like, 1-1 was finished up for that first big attack that they engaged against each other with for uThermal and not for souL. So there are some... Ooh, okay. That was really nice. Damages a lot of those Vikings there. Interference Matrix a few others, but isn't able to break the tank siege up there for souL.
Nope. I like Interference Matrix on the enemy Vikings in a fight like that, but now we've got no Raven energy. Loses
no Ravens at all, actually.
Wow, did souL just lose both of his full energy Ravens?
Well, both of them did. There's no Ravens out on the map anymore.
Ouch. I don't think souL spent the energy
who wins
on
that?
this.
Who wins this fight for the Viking War? This is actually really close. The damage is split up for both of these players on the Vikings. Yeah,
souL's Vikings are not all attacking one. Vikings are units that suffer really badly from overkill. Every projectile unit in StarCraft can overkill. Units like the Marine will always scan for a new target if another Marine is going to deal enough damage to kill it. One of the reasons why the Marines are the best unit in the game. But most units that shoot actual projectiles do not check if it's going to kill the enemy unit.
Okay. Scan comes down on top of uThermal's army. souL is making sure he's in position either on the top of that ramp or the bottom of the ramp, knowing where to put his siege tanks. But I want to note again, behind this, 4th and now 5th base up, or coming up here for uThermal on the top center side. So uThermal is really looking to just try and seize control of the map and use that as his big advantage right now.
Yeah, that's what we've seen uThermal doing pretty much this entire series, is just trying to edge out map control. Right, souL is just kind of trying to get that 4th base up now, but uThermal's already got his 4th. He's taking the 5th.
Liberators here. It's kind of interesting. I'm not used to seeing as many Liberators produce unless you do secure air control, and this is the reason why. There's 7 Vikings to just 3 now, so the 1 Liberator just goes down without doing a whole lot. A bit of a risky play there for souL. It doesn't end up panning out, so losing 1 Liberator and now losing that air superiority is going to be forced back every single time those Vikings move forward. But he's sharking around. Marines engaged versus Marines. 2-2 versus 1-1. souL is still a good ways away from finishing up his own 2-2.
This is beautiful for uThermal. Like, you talked about it already. The air control is huge. He's inching his tanks forward, actually, into the fire of his opponent. But the upgrade advantage, like, souL doesn't have more Marines. He doesn't win a fight here unless he can get uThermal to attack move into his tank line. And even then, I'm not entirely sure that he has enough to actually break the tanks of uThermal either.
Yep, it really does seem like uThermal is just a masterclass active TvT in this situation. A lot of these Marines are very stimmed up, but he's going to find all of the tanks unprotected.
He moves in at the perfect time, gets all of the siege tanks. He's going to get these Marines, and that's it.
That's all she wrote.
I don't, like, souL is going to try and defend against a counterattack. It is TvT. Tanks are really good units, but how many does he even have?
0 tanks. 0 tanks right now.
0 tanks?
He has 17 Marines and a Thor on the way.
I'm surprised that he still has an internet connection while 6 feet under, because he is pretty dead in this game. These Marines are going to come down the ramp and get blown to pieces. GG, uThermal getting out of this group in 1st place. And this was the intense, action-packed, back and forth best of 3 that we were looking for out of this group today. Yeah. I'm very, very pleased. Really good. I mean, you got to see a lot of technical aspects of Terran versus Terran there. The siege tank, slow push back and forth, that was the really big part of the game number 1. uThermal did a great job with that. That's how he cleaned that up. But game number 2, really good early game defense. Very good with the number of tech units that he had. Marine tank medevac is strong, but having that core of Vikings, having the early game Ravens does huge, huge, huge work for you. And that's why we saw uThermal kind of bring it back to reality in game 3. If you're playing TvT, you're opening with 2 Ravens, or you're doing some sort of crazy all-in. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. I really, really enjoyed that game. And that whole series right there is a really, really good showing of how uThermal is so good at those mid-game, middle-of-the-map siege tank, the army movement and stuff. Like, I feel like Day 9 is still doing the dailies and stuff. That'd be like one of those games that he just sits there and is breaking down like, okay, so here's how he decides how to move around his tanks or when he moves forward, when he's making Vikings,
That was the best part.
Stuff.
Like, souL played a really good match, but souL's weakness is clearly shown that he's just a little bit passive. And it's not even that, like, that's... I mean, he can defend, but if you're that passive, you are saying, well, I've got to jump around these 3 points, where uThermal only needs to pick 1 point that souL isn't at any one time, and that's it, game over.
And he's also just taking the command centers and taking the map behind it, so which is just securing further and further economic advantages and stuff. So really, really well done. uThermal earns his spot in the playoffs. Is going to go into that single elimination round of 8 bracket. But before that, we're going to see who's going to be joining him. The lower bracket match, of course, now they're finishing on up. Actually,
we got the decider. That's it, TvZ.
Okay, Lambo versus souL. Any predictions here, Nate?
Rematch, Lambo looked a lot hotter in the loser match. So, I don't know. I'm going to go back to I think Lambo's supposed to get out of this group.
Okay, we're going to find out if he can adjust his play a little bit in that rematch as we go into Lambo versus souL coming up next.